amount of expert advice informed the City of Edmonton's political decision to make masks mandatory at the beginning of August? Well, we've got a Freedom of Information request filed by a citizen journalist that reveals just how little hard information Edmonton City Council was running with at the time. August 1st, the City of Edmonton, Alberta, the capital city, made non-medical face coverings mandatory in all publicly accessible indoor areas. The bylaw itself is riddled with exemptions. Exemptions for young people, exemptions for anybody who self-identifies as someone who may be exempt, based on a whole manner of things: medical conditions, mental health conditions, cognitive conditions, and disabilities. And business owners are not allowed to ask for proof of an exemption. And the day the bylaw came into effect, there were 26 people in the hospital in the greater Edmonton area of over 1 million people with the deadly Wuhan cough, and just 6 of those were in the ICU. Now, the mask bylaw definitely seemed out of place and heavy-handed, given the current hospital admissions, and not exactly clean and green, given Mayor Iveson's reputation for being one of the greenest in Canada. And there have really only been 2 Edmonton City Councillors fighting against the hasty imposition of the mask law: Councillors Mike Nicol and John Daddick. So what expert advice did inform Edmonton City Council's decision to impose the mask law? Well, as best as I can see, they sought none except some health statistics reporting about the current numbers, which I told you were remarkably low at the time for coronavirus infections. Instead, the emergency management team did opinion polling about whether or not the public would be receptive to a mask mandate, basically asking the public if the city could get away with forcing perfectly healthy people to wear masks when they're indoors. And that bizarre information comes to us by way of a Freedom of Information request leaked to us by an anonymous citizen journalist. And we know who he is, but he's going to remain anonymous. He asked the city government for all studies, reports, statistics, or other relevant information used by City Council in the decision to make mask wearing in public indoor spaces mandatory within the City of Edmonton for the time period of March 1st, 2020 to July 24th, 2020. So basically from the beginning of the pandemic until, the effective end of it, when the city government incidentally decided that now was the time to start wearing masks. Here's what our tipster received back in an email. At the July 23, 2020 Emergency Advisory Committee meeting, administration provided Edmonton Zone Public Health data regarding the current levels of COVID-19, as well as the opinions and preferences of Edmontonians about wearing face coverings from recent surveys. Based on this information, administration is moving to level 2 of the face covering decision-making model, and face coverings will be required on transit and in city facilities as of August 1st, 2020. Now, our tipster did get a copy of the city presentation of the new proposed bylaw with all of the exemptions and carve-outs, and he also got a copy of the presentation from the Office of the City Manager and the Emergency Advisory Committee on mandatory face coverings that recommended moving to level 2 of the pandemic response, meaning mandatory masks everywhere. Now, that report included the results of the opinion polling. And since we already know the coronavirus infection numbers were startlingly low at the time when this mask decision was made, we can surmise that the city placed heavy emphasis on public opinion surveys of some 3,100 people to craft their new legislation. According to that survey, 71% of people said making masks mandatory would make them likely to return to public transit. Cities all across North America have taken a hit in the bottom line because people don't take the bus anymore. 76% responded that wearing a mask should be mandatory while visiting any indoor public places. And the main reasons given by the 3,100 respondents, who are just average citizens, that masks should be mandatory are: 94% of them said it will stop the spread of infection. 91% of them said they need to wear a mask to protect the most vulnerable. 83% of them said everyone needs to wear a mask for it to be effective, and 81% of people polled said a mask will keep people safe. Now, on the flip side, 14% of respondents to that survey indicate that wearing a mask should not be mandatory. 51% of them said it takes away choice. 40% of them said it creates barriers for those with disabilities. 38% said masks are not suitable for those with breathing issues, and 36% of those on the no side also said that masks are not effective infection prevention. So to be clear, this whole law isn't evidence-based legislation, but rather public opinion-based. This was a public opinion survey where the government was polling citizens about what they could get away with doing to you. And then they did it because they could, not because they needed to. And the opinions of 3,100 people have decided the fate and behaviors of over 1 million. I'll close this video on the comments written by Councillor Mike Nicol to Mayor Don Iveson. Nicol was asking for more study and more evidence before decisions like this, one that takes away freedom and changes citizens' behaviors in such a drastic way, are made in the future. He wrote, "Due to the timing and a lack of expert medical opinion at the council meeting, this seems to be more of a political decision than a medical one. We could have asked Alberta's top doctor or other regional virologists to weigh in on this decision, but as it was a political decision, politicians made it. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but the buck stops with you. Take accountability and stay in your lane." For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Did you know the city of Edmonton had initially issued mask exemption cards for people who were claiming to be exempt from their new bylaw? Well, like everything the government touches, they screwed that up, but not us. If you'd still like a mask exemption card, you can get one of ours at maskexemption.ca. It covers the city of Edmonton and all cities across Canada that have these onerous mask laws.